It's Rima Brecki on your Friday morning. Phil Wickham there, I believe. Good to have your company, Mick Wright, with you through until 9. And, of course, being a Friday morning, it is naturally speaking time with our great friend, Kelli Kieselbach, a naturopath and nutritionist who is joining us on the program this morning. Kelli, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you going?
I'm going well. It's all the better to see your smiling face this morning over Zoom. Don't you just love technology?
Oh,
I mean,
that's nice. It's so great, isn't it?
you can be in any part of the world and still be still piped into the studios live. So it is such a fantastic thing. Now, I've already mentioned this morning about our topic today, and it is on perimenopause. So I know, lots of the ladies, particularly past a certain age group, will be experiencing those kind of things. So let's jump in this morning. And for those, I guess, who may not even know what that is, what is perimenopause?
Yeah, sure. So perimenopause describes the period of time leading up to menopause. So menopause isn't official until it's like 12 months past your last menstrual bleed. And so it's that transition time beforehand. And it's important to understand that it's not a condition.
Mm-hmm.
It is normal. And it's that hormonal change that occurs in that preceding time before menopause, and it affects the woman's body and the brain. So there's changes in the brain as well as the body, as well as those hormonal changes. In fact, some researchers or experts will often refer to it as the second puberty. So it's a really crucial and important transition time. And it can last from anywhere from 2 years to 12 years. So it's quite a long transition period for some people. And it's one of those things where it's very individual. So some women are going to cruise right through that, and, not have too much disruption to their life. And for others, it can be quite distressing or frustrating. Some people find it a great time of their lives as well. So it can be very empowering and liberating for them as well. So every person's experience with it can be different. So there's no, one size fits all. But it is a very important time as far as health and life and all of that goes.
Yep, absolutely. So look, what are some of the signs and the symptoms of perimenopause?
Yeah, so not everyone's going to get all the things that come with that, and the severity
A lot of ladies
them.
just shouted hallelujah.
Yeah, that's right.
The
And the severity can be quite different for each person, and it's also, a lot of women, they dread this time, the change, as it used to be called.
Yeah, right.
But it's important to understand that most symptoms that you experience during that perimenopause period are going to be temporary. So it's really important to not panic and think this is how life's going to be now. But usually most of those symptoms will be temporary. So some of the symptoms that could occur, often people find changes with their mood, particularly in the early stages. Women can find they become more anxious or get overwhelmed more easily, or more irritable, more mood swings, or brain fog as well. So start to find that it's harder to think clearly. There's few aches and pains can start to creep in, and sleep disturbances are quite common as well. Migraines and headaches can often appear at this time as well, or if people have had migraines and headaches in the past, they can sometimes get worse. And then kind of as you get further along, then that temperature regulation starts to go out, and you start to, get the hot flushes or the night sweats, and your cycle can change, become more irregular, flow can change. And also things like dry, itchy skin, like that's not associated with other skin conditions, can occur as well, which I think some of these symptoms, a lot of women don't realize could be associated with a part of this change as well.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot to take in there, isn't it, for a lot of women? And again, you look at a lot of those signs and symptoms and think, particularly with the brain fog, the headaches, and that is it perimenopause? Is it not? So always probably the best to
Well, and that's the thing, So it's important to rule out other causes.
Yep.
and not just to assume that this is what's happening. But especially in the early stages, it can be quite, there's no real test for perimenopause. Even
Right.
testing your hormones doesn't really show things up. So it can be a little bit of just kind of understanding the symptom picture, the life stage, ruling out other things, and then
I was going to say it's
kind
probably
of
more a
going from
case
there.
of, an elimination process, isn't it, really? Just
Yeah,
trying to rule out anything else and go, oh, okay, we've got a bit more of a snapshot now. This
yeah.
could be what it is now. You're moving into perimenopause. So, talking about that, so what age group of women is kind of most likely to be affected?
Okay, so with perimenopause, anywhere from sort of mid to late 30s onwards,
Mm,
typically around the 40s or early 40s. So remember, this is a transition that can, span a decade or more. So, between that 2 to 12 years. So, yeah, from 36 onward, women should be starting to think about, you know, doing things to support themselves to move through that transition, which I think is a real surprise to most people because most people think, oh, that's something for
right.
the older ladies. But actually, us middle-aged women, around the 40 mark, this, can start to notice a lot of changes. And like I said, some women won't notice anything, but for some, it can, start to show those little niggles
Yeah.
anytime from, yeah, late 30s, really.
Yeah. Now we've looked at some of the signs and symptoms of it this morning, and I guess probably the next thing to ask you, like, because it is a fairly long, it can be a long process for some people. Like you said, it could be 2 years, up to 12 years, even, or 10 to 12 years.
Yep.
So, are there stages of perimenopause? If they are, sort of, what are they? How do they progress?
There are stages, but it's not like super clear cut. So
Hmm.
generally we talk about early perimenopause, where it's just some of those little niggles. You might start to notice the mood and the sleep is changing a little bit. And so yeah, there's that early perimenopause and late perimenopause. But there are sort of some patterns in the way the hormones change. So often, historically, when we've talked about menopause, it's like, oh, it's all about estrogen. But actually, it starts with a drop in progesterone, which is a really important reproductive hormone. It's
Hmm.
really important for temperature regulation and mood, and, has some anti inflammatory properties. And so that drops off first. And so you're left with this sort of high estrogen and low progesterone picture. And that can be part of what causes some of those symptoms early on. And then you do start to get a drop in the estrogen then as well. And that happens sort of further along in the picture. And then there's also changes in insulin and blood sugar metabolism as well. So this is that whole thing around, as you get older, for ladies particularly, it's really hard to lose that weight around the middle. And
Hmm.
that's because the way your body uses sugars and carbohydrates is changing. And we naturally become more insulin resistant. So there's some metabolic changes that occur as well down the track.
Yeah, like it's really comprehensive, isn't it? It just affects so many aspects of a woman's life. And I guess
Mm.
super important to get onto that, which we'll be talking about very, very shortly. We are chatting with our great friend Kelli Kieselbach. We are naturally speaking this morning with Kelli, talking about perimenopause. We'll take a quick break and we'll be back right after this. Make sure you stick around. 23 and a half minutes after 8 on your Friday morning edition of Rima Breckie. Good to have you on board. Mick Wright with you through until 9, of course. We are naturally speaking this morning. Our great friend Kelli Kieselbach is joining us. We're chatting about perimenopause. Now, Kelli, before we went to the break, we were sort of having a look at some of the stages of perimenopause, the age group of women that are likely affected, some of the signs and symptoms about it as well, a bit of a definition. So, I guess what should a woman do if she does start to experience some of the signs and the symptoms of perimenopause?
Yeah. Well, I think as we touched on before, the first thing to do is like, don't panic.
Yes.
And make sure that you do just go and get a checkup. Just make sure that, there's no other sort of,
Sure.
obvious things that are going on that might be contributing. So I think that's really important that we don't just make assumptions about what's going on. And like I said, there's no real test for perimenopause. So, it's something that, we need to assess in the context of the person. Um, but yeah, so getting firstly just, checking that nothing else is going on. And then I would, you know, take a look at some of that foundational diet and lifestyle stuff, because that does actually make a really big difference. And we might talk a little bit about what some of those things are, but looking at making sure, you're eating healthy, you're moving appropriately, you're managing stress well. Those kind of things do make a big difference to your experience of perimenopause. And then I think it's really good, particularly if you are one of those unfortunate women who really have a hard time at this stage of life, is to get some support from a nutritionist or naturopath, or, to help learn and educate yourself on how you can support your body during this time to lessen the distress or lessen some of those symptoms.
Now, as a naturopath and a nutritionist, I mean, you see people for a whole raft of issues. So what are some of the ways that you personally, using those modalities, how you would actually begin to treat somebody who is presenting with perimenopause symptoms?
Yeah. Well, I think there's three key aspects when we're approaching, feel more comfortable, lessen some of those, make it less of a roller coaster, basically. The second thing is that we want to look at prevention of developing other conditions.
Actually, I'll interrupt you there. I'm so sorry. We lost your audio there for a minute. So what was that first point again, just so we don't miss it on the recording for later?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just saying there's three key aspects when we approach treatment or supporting someone with perimenopause. So the first one is to help manage the symptoms and to support a smooth transition. So we're just helping people feel a bit more comfortable and making it a bit less of a roller coaster, basically. The second thing is prevention. So this is a really critical health window for women. It can be a time where your metabolism changes and you're at a higher risk for things like bone loss, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. So we're looking at supporting people to prevent some of those things from happening. And then the third thing is addressing any complicating factors. So if women also have other health conditions like endometriosis or fibroids, then we want to be able to support them through that as well. So, so how we would do that, because diet and lifestyle here is going to make a huge impact to how you experience this transition. So we would be looking at things like reducing alcohol, educating people on a diet that is good for someone who's more insulin resistant. So reducing the sugars and the high carbohydrates and making sure there's plenty of protein rich foods, and making sure people are eating enough as well, because often women, when they're starting to notice that they're gaining more weight around the middle, their instinct is to eat less and stop eating.
Right.
So we really want to talk to people about how that can affect their metabolism negatively, and making sure that they're fueling their body in a really healthy way. And supporting liver health as well, because that can help with, reducing hot flushes and headaches and things like that as well. So diet-wise, reducing the alcohol, the sugars, the carbs, focusing on protein, making sure you're getting plenty of fiber in the diet, those sorts of things. And then we would also look at stress management. So, if when and not managing stress well, then that is going to exacerbate any symptoms that we have. So supporting them to, both with like herbs and nutrients that help support with stress, but also education around self-care and that kind of thing is really, really important. There are quite a number of herbs and nutrients that we would use as well. So things like magnesium with glycine and taurine can be super helpful for someone with sleep issues and hot flushes. herbal medicines like saffron and St. John's wort to support the mood, and looking at, sort of anti-inflammatory herbs and nutrients as well can be very useful. And sometimes we might use phytoestrogens. So, often, compounds from soy or other herbal medicines can help with those hormonal fluctuations. So, yeah, helping with some of the symptoms there. So at the end of the day, it really is quite an individualized approach,
Yeah.
depending on what that woman is experiencing, what else is going on in their life, what their diet's like, their genetics even, as to how we would approach it. But those foundational things are usually always the same, avoiding the processed food, the alcohol, the sugar.
Yeah.
Focusing on protein, stress management, all of those things always come into it. And then we would use more personalized approach depending on what's going on for that.
And
that
I guess
person.
too, with sort of some of the women in the younger age group who haven't really hit that time yet, I think a lot of these approaches anyway, to start adopting them a little bit earlier on in the piece, would probably go such a long way to helping them through that transition, hey?
100%, 100%. So I actually really educate my clients if they come in and they're in their sort of mid 30s, late 30s. I was like, start, understanding how your body works, what changes are going to occur, particularly those mood changes as well, because they can often be the most distressing. Well, not always, but for some. And so understanding that this is a full change, like your brain not only changes, there's not only chemical changes, but there's structural changes as well that occur. Right. So it's like, it really is quite a significant thing that's happening to your body and your brain. And a lot of these things are just great, healthy lifestyle tips. So, getting education around your diet, maybe starting to support the liver with foods and things, and maybe starting to look at, do I need a multi-mineral or vitamin, or all of those things. Start looking at them now, start educating yourself now. It will set you up well for the later stages.
Absolutely. Always a great pleasure talking to you, Kelli. And look, if people want to track you down, whether they want to find you, follow you, some of your blogs and things like that, the website, how can they do that?
Yeah, so there's a fair bit of information on my website. You can go to kellik.com.au. So it's kellik.com.au. You can also follow me on socials. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So kellik_naturopath and Kelli K Health on Facebook. So I'd love for you to join me there. And if you wanted to connect for more sort of personalized support, I do also offer free introductory calls as well, and offer Zoom appointments for clients interstate and that kind of thing. So that's always an option there if you want something a little bit more tailored for your needs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelli. Always a pleasure again talking to you. I'll put you on hold there, and we'll be back with Kelli Kieselbach next month. Another great topic as well. We'll keep you informed on how that one is tracking. Make sure you stick around. This is Rima Bracchi. It's your Friday morning. We got the 8:30 news coming up next.